Hi guys, remember some time ago when the Tories voted in the House of Commons to stop Parliament from scrutinising trade deals? Well, perhaps there's more evidence to back up the claim that they did so in order to hide some of the crap contained within them. So the free trade deal that the UK and Australia are planning to sign includes a controversial system of courts that will not be open to public scrutiny. These courts will allow businesses to seek compensation if the post-Brexit trade deal harms their profits. The taxpayer will in turn pay out. The Trade Minister Greg Hands told UK negotiators that are currently in talks with Australian government officials that the trade deal includes proposals to set up courts of arbitration to deal with disputes, but all of this will be behind closed doors, away from public scrutiny. The UK is desperate to sign a trade deal with Australia before the 11th of June when the G7 summit takes place, and this could be one of the sweeteners to the deal. Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his Aussie counterpart Scott Morrison are expected to meet at the G7 summit in Cornwall, where they will discuss some of the aspects of the trade deal. The International Trade Secretary Liz Truss has said on numerous occasions that this deal will be in the best interests of UK exporters as they will have better access to the Australian market. But considering how low down on the scale Australia is to the UK when it comes to exports, it's difficult to see a real benefit here. The opposite is true. The proposed deal has a plan to scrap tariffs and quotas on Australian agricultural products, including sheep and beef, coming into the UK. Experts and those working in the agricultural sector see this as undercutting British farmers. The idea of an investor dispute settlement scheme allowing private firms to sue the government is something both anti-poverty activists and trade unions should be deeply concerned about. It would be another example of businesses being bailed out by the taxpayer because of Brexit. We have seen, for example, how the fishing industry has been promised financial help due to the fallout of the UK leaving the single market and the customs union. These types of courts that act behind the scenes are nothing new. They have been concocted by multinational companies in order to protect themselves against seizure of their assets in countries that have just experienced a revolution or where government doesn't function correctly. The idea that they would exist in the UK is sheer madness, but not out of sync with what Brexiteers want to turn the UK into. Recent cases involving investor-state settlement schemes brought against governments include the Swedish energy firm Vattenfall suing Germany for its policies to cut water pollution, the US drugs giant Eli Lilly suing Canada for trying to reduce medicine prices, and the French multinational Veolia suing Egypt for increasing its national minimum wage. There has been some political resistance to this. Labour's shadow trade minister Emily Thornberry weighed in on this and said, and I quote, "It would be deeply worrying if the government is using the very first post-Brexit trade agreement written from scratch to hand major corporations power to challenge regulations that affect their profits, restricting our ability as a country to introduce new laws to protect the environment, public health, and the rights of workers and consumers. It is yet another reason why this proposed trade deal needs proper scrutiny and debate, rather than being rushed through in secret for a signing ceremony at the G7. Nick Dearden, the director of Global Justice Now, an advocacy group, said the Australian company planning to develop the coal mine in Cumbria could sue the government for stopping or even delaying the project for environmental reasons. He also gave the example of the Dutch government being sued in one of these courts for daring to phase out coal power in the country. The plaintiff is a fossil fuels company, of course. Attempts to include these courts as part of a free trade deal between the European Union and the US were dropped following protests back in 2017. TTIP, or the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, is still stuck and doesn't seem to be going anywhere. When Boris Johnson's government was pressed on this issue, the response from Greg Hands, the trade minister, was, well, how can I put this, not very encouraging. He said, and I quote, "It is a live negotiation. There will be a chapter on investment. We are huge investors in each other's markets. I would remind the House that the UK has never lost an ISDS case." The problem with this statement is that even if you win the case, there are still legal costs. Governments are there to protect human rights. uphold worker protections, and to maintain standards to ensure we have a cleaner world. These courts would allow businesses to force the government to compensate them for any loss in profits. That would mean more money going to private companies, which of course would mean less money for public services. It would also allow these companies to run roughshod over hard-won protections like the ones mentioned. Even if the government does win the case against the private company, it on many occasions comes at a cost to the taxpayer. Nick Crook at the trade union Unison gave the example of the tobacco giant Philip Morris that tried to sue the Australian government when it was attempting to pass plain packaging on cigarettes as part of a public health initiative. Philip Morris lost the case, but the Australian government had to foot a $24 million legal bill. As I've said before, Brexit has been twofold: the political rhetoric to keep the racists and knuckle-draggers happy with strong punitive action against migrants and even tourists visiting the UK. On the other, disaster capitalism. Businesses under such a scheme would be able to take the government to court and sue, all away from public scrutiny. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?